Hello everyone and welcome back. Thanks for stopping by. Dom here with another video, and the first thing I'd like to do on this video is to thank you guys for the amazing response that you gave me for the Cubase 10.5 video. It was really beyond my expectations, and I really thank you for all your comments, all your love, and for giving me all your questions. What I'm gonna do on this video is I'm going to give you my 5 favorite stock plugins in Cubase. These plugins, I use them all the time, and to be honest with you, I know that even some long-time Cubase users don't know about these plugins, and they see them and they're like, oh, is that in Cubase? And yes, it is in Cubase, and actually some of these plugins are really secret weapons for quite a few things, for mixing, for mastering, for production. So let me show you what these 5 plugins are. Let's get started. Right, the first plugin I want to talk about is the Multiband Envelope Shaper. And in my opinion, the Multiband Envelope Shaper is a miracle in a plugin. Why? Because basically it allows you to save really boring takes, to save, like drums that have no punch, that have no transients, and you can even transform loops altogether. It works great with drums, it works great with acoustic guitars, things that have attack and release. It works great with sometimes even with vocals when you have like early reflections and you want to get rid of them, because basically, check what happens. You have 4 bands, and every band is an envelope shaper. If you know the SPL Transient Designer, that's the concept basically. You can change the attack of every band, you can change the release, and you can change the length of the attack. So let me get this loop here, and let me show you what it can do for you. Let's add some attack to the kick drum. See? I mean, immediately, no compression, nothing else, no EQing, I'm just adding the attack to the kick drum. Let's go for a clap. And I can change the bands as well. You get a completely different result. Let's go for this top percussion. Again, without. Lifeless. Punchy. Now, I can even change the release. Let's go for the release of the kick drum and make it long. That would be very useful if I didn't have bass in my track and I wanted to get advantage of that, a longer kick drum. Or make it completely tight. Let's make the other things tight as well. Again, without. We made this loop more staccato, more punchy, a little bit more groovy. And if you go the other way around, now it's a little bit more open. See, so I can remix the loop as I go, and I can say I want to add a little bit of low end now. Again, without. So I think the Multiband Envelope Shaper is a really powerful plugin. It could easily be a third-party plugin and cost $149. I've seen way worse plugins that don't do as a great job, and they cost more than that. So Multiband Envelope Shaper, it's there. It's the secret weapon inside Cubase, and I think it deserves, like a special mention. Even if I had to mention just one plugin, that would be the Multiband Envelope Shaper. Now, the next plugin that I want to mention, plugin number 2, is Quadra Files, and it keeps that same multiband philosophy. It has the same multiband processing, but in this case, every band has its own saturation settings. You have tape saturation, tube, distortion, you have decimator, so you can reduce the bit depth, and you can also reduce the sample rate, and you also have distortion. Really, really powerful, but that's just the beginning. There are so many things going on in this plugin, it's almost like an entire video, but I'm gonna try and show you. Let's say I have the same drum loop, and I want to add distortion just to the low end. And I can even gate it. See? Let's go for the low mids and add some tube saturation there. And let's add some width. See, the different tube types make a huge difference. And let's add some delay. It even has a ducker for the delay. I mean, this is such a deep plugin. And let's go and add like a decimeter here on the high mids. Make it a little bit glitchy. Can change the level of every band as well. And now I can mix it. See? You know, this can really transform your loop. So if you have a large library of loops, you know, you can just drop in a loop and start mangling it, and you can get with, I promise you, like 3, 4, 5 different loops just by using different settings on the Quadra Files. I also like to use it on vocals. I like to use it on bass. So for the bass, I may leave the low end alone and just add a little bit of tape saturation, and then I add a little bit of distortion on the low mids and the high mids to get a little bit of bite. So very, very powerful plugin. You can do so many things in the box with this, and it sounds really, really good. Now, the third plugin, you might be surprised, but it's the humble stereo delay in Cubase. And you might be wondering, what's so special about this plugin? It's a stereo delay. Yes, it is. It's fully featured. It has some cool things, you know, low filter, high filter, all these things. I'm not using it as a delay. I'm using it to create this has effect, right? This effect basically, it tricks your brain into thinking that a sound is very, very wide. So how does it work? One channel has no delay. It's 0, see, it's all the way down. Wet, the dry wet control, and the other side has just wet, and it's 25 milliseconds of delay with no feedback, with nothing else. Now I play sometimes on 25 or 20 milliseconds, but basically if you add this to any instrument, it makes it sound super wide. This effect has actually been used by many producers and especially for big, you know, hit records like Michael Jackson's Thriller, and basically it sounds like this. Let me show you on this vocal.
We're sailing towards that fading light with those vintage lullabies, velvet sounds forgotten right.
You know, so it sounds really, really wide. That's because basically what this effect does is it tricks your brain, because your brain doesn't really perceive 25 milliseconds of delay as a delay. You actually perceive it as like a very wide sound because it's spread left and right. It doesn't really think, oh, okay, this sound came later. This difference between my two ears makes this makes me perceive this as a very wide sound, and that's what it does. So again,
now it's time for us to
so with a humble stereo delay in Cubase, you can create this very famous effect, the has effect, without using any third-party plugins. You know, some people just spend money on buying plugins that can do just this simple thing. Basically, what they do under the hood is this. Simple as that. Now, moving on, let me show you the next plugin that I really like, and that's the venerable Destroyer. This was introduced in Cubase 10, and it's been a staple for hardstyle producers to make these kick drums that are really, really punchy, and you know, they're really distorting. They cut through the mix, and you know, it gives you this sound. And you know, to be honest with you, I use it like that, but I also use it to add a little bit of dirt and a little bit of character to loops, like this one, for example. Let's add a little bit of Destroyer. And maybe I tone it down a little bit and mix it in. See? It adds this nice kind of dirt to the sound, some grit. It makes the loop sound more interesting, right? I also use it for vocals, sometimes in parallel, to make them stand in a very busy mix, especially with electronic music. You know, a little bit of distortion helps. So Destroyer is very cool with that because it can go from very, very subtle to completely, devastating amounts of distortion. And I also like to use it on bass, on electric bass. Again, I just add a little bit of it. To the point where it breaks a little bit. And then I mix it. And because we have distortion there, we get this very, very nice, compression out of the distortion, and the bass sits better in the mix. It actually makes it more even. Also gives you a little bit of dirt and a little bit of harmonics in the top end. It makes it sound way, way more prominent in the mix. And, this is great because you can actually get some of this distorted bass sound out of Destroyer. I like this, and sometimes, you know what I do? I tend to make it a little bit more mellow. I don't go all the way, in the frequencies here. I just make it a little bit darker. So it depends on the material, but basically you can do this on this single plugin, which is really, really cool. Now, the last plugin on the list is the incredible Frequency. And this plugin, again, I think it could be a third-party plugin. It's an incredible EQ, but it has pretty much everything you need from an EQ. It has linear phase, it has MS, it has really steep filters like this one. You can see here I have this 96 dB per octave low-cut filter. You have really nice sounds. It's really responsive. It has a great analyzer here, and you'll be surprised on how good it sounds. Sometimes I add it on the master bus to get a little bit of vibe. So when I'm producing, I get a little bit of vibe. And then when I'm removing it, it's like, whoa, everything just fell apart. And I've only added a little bit, 1 dB, 1.5 dBs. It's very responsive. So I like the fact that I can listen to what I'm doing.
We're sailing towards that fading light with those vintage lullabies.
Take away some resonances.
Sounds forgotten rhymes.
The top end sounds really nice as well.
Now it's time for us to shine. We're sailing towards that fading light with those vintage lullabies.
See?
Velvet sounds forgotten rhymes.
So I think Frequency is one of those EQs that, again, you might not really appreciate it because it's already in Cubase, and you might be thinking, okay, it's a stock plugin, but I think it's actually really, really good. And that's the case with most of the Cubase plugins. I think that for quite a few years now, the stock plugins in Cubase are incredibly good. Sometimes they sound better than third-party counterparts, and for quite a few things, I'm finding that I'm reaching out to them more and more often. So, just look into your plugin folder. They're there, they're waiting for you, and they do sound good. So there you go, guys. These are my 5 favorite Cubase stock plugins. I think these plugins could basically sell for quite a bit of money, and I'm really happy that we have them for free inside Cubase. And it's actually one of the reasons why some people, go into Cubase for mixing from other DAWs, because the plugins are so good and they really, really work very well for quite a bit of material, for mixing, for mastering, for pretty much everything. So in the comments down below, please let me know which ones are your favorite Cubase plugins. Maybe there's a plugin that should be on my list as well. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Click that bell notification icon. It really helps if you want to get notified when I post new videos. And I really thank you so much for all the messages and all the love down in the comments. Until next time, have fun and make some great music.